Who are you?
Whoever you want me to be.
Don't say I never gave you anything.
It's feeling epic.
3 words. 8 letters.
I remember everything.
Hello. Welcome to Previously on Teen TV. Today, listeners, you are in for a very special treat. I am joined by all the girlies today, producer Jesse and Claire, and we have all come together for a very special occasion. And that is to talk about the new Netflix hit, One Day. I mean, ladies, have you finished crying yet?
Not quite. I'm ready.
It's right there. I'm at the brink at any moment.
I mean, we had to pull out the wine to start talking about this episode. Previously on After Dark, we brought out all the drinks because the emotions are going to be flowing. I mean, what a show.
It was a lot. It was really intense.
It was overwhelming
Yeah.
and devastating.
Yeah.
Okay, devastating is a good word.
Yeah.
What?
I was a little mad.
Oh, Jesse's always
always angry.
always mad.
We can't call you producer Jesse in
I
this
know.
one. We'll
Yeah,
just
you're
call
just
you
Jesse.
Jesse.
Just Jesse.
Yeah.
Producer Tyler's over there.
Yeah.
We pull him in when we need to. We all watch this show. So we all really wanted to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
We know this is a teen TV show podcast. It's in the
Right.
name. Like, we get that. But we all watched the show.
Mm-hmm.
We really loved it. And we wanted to talk about it.
Right. I think it's in the same theme as so many of the teen shows we talk about of like they're growing up, like we're watching them become adults. Like obviously they're not in high school, but I think it's about a lot of the same things. So
course.
I feel like it makes sense.
I
So.
agree. I feel like it took longer for them to grow up than some of these high school shows.
Yeah, they were still acting like high schoolers.
More realistic,
Yeah,
I thought,
exactly.
honestly. Like, I like that we really saw them like grow through like all these years. I also feel like, it's a romance.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we love a romance, and that's a common theme of these high school shows as well.
The fact is, we don't have to justify it. We can talk about whatever we want on here.
Yeah.
Wow. Producer
Cheers.
Jesse, tell us
Cheers to
that.
that. Woo. But yes, as I've said on this show before, as a romantic, I loved this show. I feel like, though, I've encountered a lot of people who did not love it, which really shocked me. Like, people who could not even, finish it. Like, they stopped watching. They didn't like it. I'm on the flip side. I loved it. I finished it in about one day, if you will. I started at 7 p.m. one night, watched 12 episodes in one night, and then finished by 11 a.m. the next morning.
Yeah, I watched it over 2 days, and I think I kept watching it because I thought it was only going to be a few episodes when I started it.
No,
it's
because it is
longer.
advertised as a limited series. And so I was like, oh, this will be 3 to 5 episodes.
I thought it would be 8.
It just
No,
kept going.
it's
I kept
14,
hitting
baby.
next, and I just kept going. And I was like, what time is it?
I was laughing, though, because I was like, we keep asking for, more episodes.
I know, and they
then-
gave you more.
And then I was like, 14? I'm not
fully-
going to be able to finish
But
this tonight.
if you calculate it, it's only 7 hours total because they're short episodes.
Claire's done the calculations.
Claire knows because she did
I did watch
this
it in one
day.
day. Yesterday was that day. In fact, I started at 2 p.m. and finished at about 10:45 after taking a couple breaks.
I love when you give us the exact time.
Well, I
That's
have to think
important to
about
me.
it because I was like, oh, how late in the day can I start this and not be up unreasonably
Claire waits
late?
to do her homework until the last minute.
I do better with
Possible
pressure. I
minute.
like a deadline, okay?
We'll keep putting the pressure on.
I know.
like
Just
it.
don't tell me I
Aren't
need
you
to watch
glad we
something.
made you watch it, though?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
To be clear, I wanted to watch it. I loved it. And I had it on my radar. Always wanted to watch it, but I had to finish School Spirits. That was my priority first. And then I finished that show on a Friday night. And then you're like, well, let's talk about One Day. And I'm like, I guess I got one day to do it. And here we are.
We give really fun homework here.
But I loved it.
Well, did either of you read the book?
No, I had no idea it was a book.
Okay, same. And like I love books. Like this is my bookshelf.
I am shocked.
And
And
I
I
love-
would like pull it off the shelf and be like,
I know.
hold it up.
And I love a romance book, and I had never even heard of it.
Really?
Yeah, which I was
Okay.
like, maybe I'm just too contemporary romance. I don't know.
So I had heard of it because it was a movie too.
Right.
It was an Anne Hathaway movie.
Which I heard that movie is bad.
I heard that too. And so I remember like when it came out though, like being aware of it, and I was like, maybe I'll read the book. And then the movie came out and it was not good. And so I was like, whatever, forgot about it. Yeah. But I did know it was a book and a movie. And I did look up the plot. Not before watching this, but like months and months ago, I looked up the plot. So I knew what was happening in this.
Yeah, I've heard that people say that it is obviously better than the movie, but that they stay fairly true to the book, although some of the characters are different.
From what I looked at online, it
Yeah.
seemed like it was pretty similar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I'm fine with. Having not read the book, I
Yeah,
don't really
think
care.
since we
but
haven't read
Yeah.
the book, we probably
Yeah,
won't
we
dive
won't talk
into
about
the
it too much.
differences.
But it still follows like that structure of like every chapter is one day.
So it
right?
took me
or no?
it took me sadly long to realize what was going on with the one day thing. I remember being like, but why is it called one day?
You hit play on Netflix and you
I was,
were
like,
just
also
enjoying the ride.
This is embarrassing. I kept being like, okay, has it been 1 year, multiple years? Like, I think it's been like a couple years.
Jesse, they
like,
tell you at the
I
top
was-
of every
I was
episode.
Okay, but to be fair, also like when it was the 80s, I was like, I didn't think anybody really looked like they were like in the 80s
I know,
that
yeah.
much. I was confused.
Her
And then-
dress was a little 80s, but that's about
Yeah.
it. Everything else was.
and the tape thing when she said, "Let me
The
put on a
tape.
tape." But like I was kind of confused about
I was
what
just doing
time
a lot of
period we
math
were in.
that I didn't need to be doing about how much time it had been.
Oh,
And I
dear.
was, when I realized that very late in the game, I was like, wow, I like really made that hard for myself.
you were so invested in the story that you weren't paying
was.
attention to
Yeah.
the.
No, that's what I'm saying. Every time it
Oh.
would flip, I'd be like, oh, okay, so the last one was probably in like September.
Oh, you just
Oh
weren't
my
calculating
God.
that.
Oh, that's
even though it was
funny.
July 15th every
Yeah.
time.
Cut
Yeah.
this.
It did though take me a minute.
No,
I
it's
was
relatable.
like, oh, every episode is one day. Like, because one day can also mean
I
like one
did
day maybe
realize
we'll be
that.
together.
Yeah,
Like,
oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So I do think it took me a minute to be like, oh, this is cool how like every episode is one day.
Right, and
Like
you're-
it's all over 24 hours.
Yeah, and you're checking
We're
it with them.
intellectuals.
If you haven't watched, which again, if you haven't watched, why are you listening? But watch it because it's quick, it's fun.
Yeah.
Fun.
Fun.
Well, it's it's emotional. I wouldn't say fun, but it's rewarding. I think.
I was still
I think it's worth
smiling
it's worth
Yes.
it. It's
Yes.
worth it. Is I guess a better.
I
way.
mean, I got hooked in
It was
right
fun.
away.
Yeah, there were
Same.
definitely fun moments.
At the
Yeah.
college party.
That was
like,
so fun.
When they're dancing together and he like smiles at her. Oh my God. And then like she brings him back to her place. Like I was eating that up. Like I
Doesn't
loved it.
sleep with him. Like, what?
Okay, I kind of thought that was like realistic for
I
that
thought it was
age.
unrealistic.
Oh my God.
Leah Woodall is in your bed. Like,
well, that's what Tilly's saying. She's like, "Are you insane?" She's
Yeah.
like, "Do it." But
Come on.
I get it. She's nervous. She's intimidated by how cute he is and how charming he is, and she's like in her head.
What do you think though about him going after her? Like I saw people were like, oh, I didn't like believe it.
I believed it because
Yeah.
I think that's what she was trying to do, was be the one girl that didn't sleep with him, to be different. Like, I feel like that was her. I mean, I'm not
don't know
meaning
why
this
it's
in a
like
negative
weird. I
way.
know.
I'm meaning this in a, we all know that guys like a chase.
Yeah, no,
And I
yeah.
think that was her approach was, oh, like if I just sleep with him, it's just going to be a one night thing. Like,
So she was
if
playing
I
the
don't
long
s-
game.
I mean, yeah, I thought she was
Okay.
playing the long game.
I
like,
thought she was like trying definitely like, oh, I do want to like get to know him. Like,
Yeah.
what is he about?
Yeah.
Like, I've heard all these rumors about him and everybody thinks they know Dexter Mayhew, but like, who is Dexter Mayhew? Like, that's
Right.
kind of her personality a little bit
Yeah.
more too.
Yeah, that's true.
We also like didn't know like how experienced she was like
True.
sexually and like
She says something about that too. She's like, "I don't do this often," or
maybe it
whatever.
was
Yeah.
of her first time.
Wow.
That's what you were insinuating.
No, yeah, I don't like. It
Maybe.
could have
I mean, it could have been. It could have been.
I mean, they were in college. Like, I mean, I know they like graduated, but like, we don't know. It was
Yeah, who knows?
89. Were
80s,
people
yeah.
having random
I don't
sex?
know.
Yes, people have been having random sex since the beginning of time.
Well, we grew up in the repressed
we weren't in the
early
80s.
2000s. Okay, we don't know.
That was like peak AIDS crisis.
Yes, random
Yeah.
sex.
Yeah.
The movie has a 36 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yikes.
But a much higher rating on IMDb, so I don't know. It might be one
It's
of those that you
probably
might
like-
like. You might actually like it
Sometimes
if you
it's
see
like
it.
low, like 30s on Rotten Tomatoes is actually kind of fun. Like that's
Yeah.
like that like little window where
got
it's
a
like
it's got
kinda
a
silly, goofy.
7 on IMDb, so like
Oh, that's pretty high
yeah.
for IMDb. Yeah.
Okay.
Add
I
that
feel
to
like
my
too,
list.
nothing on Rotten Tomatoes that's a romance gets above like
Yeah,
50,
exactly.
Critics don't
so-
like a romance.
I'm curious. I might check it out one of these days. We'll
Okay.
add
see.
it to the list.
Yeah.
We want to support Annie Hathaway.
I was gonna
We
say
do.
it's got Annie in it, so
Right.
We love
we love Annie.
We love her
Annie.
now.
We call her Annie because we're personal friends. We do love her now.
But so yeah, that first going back to the first app real quick, because
Yeah.
I do just feel like that was like such a gripping episode of television to me. Like watching them kind of like play this game and like them climb Albert's seat, which I've climbed before, by the way.
Wow.
So I was like, oh my god.
Flashbacks.
Yeah, I mean, my climb was very different. I was with my drama class and in high school.
Wow.
And the
but
teacher.
Emma was in drama too, so there's a connection there.
Yeah.
Wow.
You kind of give me Emma vibes.
Do
though.
I?
A
Oh,
little.
thank
In like
you.
a good way, yeah.
No, I took it as a compliment. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see that.
You're both like English, like theater.
I know that's true.
I thought you meant British.
I thought that you said they're both English.
We like
Wait,
English.
she's not
Claire
British.
is
I'm an English
Like
major.
literature.
Claire is an
literature.
American.
I was an English major in college.
well,
You were
she
correct.
Claire's American? What?
I did study abroad, not in
I knew you were
Edinburgh,
gonna
in
say
London.
I was like, she did
Everyone
study abroad.
drinks. She said study abroad. Drink.
We're talking about London. How am I not supposed to bring it up?
What were we talking about?
Oh yeah, I was saying that you give me some Emma vibes.
I will take that as a compliment.
As it's meant to be.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I only hope to be as successful as she ends up becoming, although with a different ending.
Oh, yeah.
Yikes.
That's a solid point to add in there, honestly.
But thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
Well, I feel like really one of the big things that drew me into the show was
Just say it.
You know what I'm gonna say?
Leah Woodall.
With Leah Woodall.
Yeah,
of course. Like I'm literally getting warm just thinking about it.
Well, we all
Like-
saw him in White Lotus, and
We did.
We got hooked.
And this is such a different character though
So
than White
different.
Lotus.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, the range on this guy.
Love it.
Like, he was so good in this. Like, he was doing something that is a lost art. And
Yeah.
what I mean by that is the way that he looked at her, like, and really like looked at her and saw her. Like you just don't see
Yeah.
that in romances anymore. Like it's a lost art, and he did that. And I was like, I feel like I could like barely breathe. Like it was so good.
There's a lot of nonverbal communication between
Yeah.
the two characters, and a lot of times, like, they're saying one thing, and you can see they don't mean that thing.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
and they just both actors do a great job. Like,
Yeah.
it's real. That's some really hard. Like, it was very believable. I mean,
I
yeah.
think it wouldn't have worked if the actors like weren't good.
Yeah.
And I thought that they were both very good. I thought that they had good chemistry
I did
together.
too,
I mean,
yeah.
again, him just giving her those eyes was enough for me.
Oh, yeah.
But I thought they had something.
I thought they were great together. I fully believed like the attraction at the beginning, the friendship, the escalation, all of it.
I mean, they gave us what we always talk about that we like, of like, oh, it's a little touch. It's like we did not get much of that. This is my beef, is that we didn't get a lot of them actually together as a
No, we
couple.
don't.
That's my
And
beef,
I
That's my
want
same.
more of them together as a couple, because it's so good when we finally do get it.
Yeah.
But like all the episodes leading up to that, they give us a little something here and there, and it's just enough to keep us hooked. And like, we love that. We love the lead up.
We
with
do.
the little flirting and the little touches and the looks.
I agree with you with that beef, because I said this, that I thought a lot more people might like it if they even like hooked up like at some point in the
earlier
middle,
on,
like
yeah.
maybe on that trip in Greece or something, like I at least kiss, like, and
Yeah.
maybe they don't necessarily like get together, but like at least we kind of like have something and we're able to kind of like see that chemistry more. But they did do a good job of giving a lot in just the glances. I mean, like the way
She's overwhelmed.
like the way when she would like rest her head like on
Yeah.
his arm, like
They're,
the
like,
way that they
laying-
just like laid in the park together.
what I was gonna say.
Yes.
Hot.
But it's like also like so familiar and so like
Yes.
just like comfortable immediately.
Yes.
Is so like, oh, like it's so like gripping, I guess.
like you literally saw her like relax in his arms,
Yeah.
and it's like, isn't that really just like what we all want? Like,
Which is shocking that she could be that relaxed with him, considering she had a crush on him like for
Yeah.
so long.
Yeah.
I mean, I do kind of believe that she kind of went in and out of the crush.
I agree.
Because of that. Like, when you like somebody, you're like nervous around them. And like, I don't know, like they really did have a familiarity, like that felt like really natural. So
Yeah.
when do you think she kind of like lost the crush a little bit?
I think Grease.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I
Grease
mean,
was-
when he said that to her, I was like, I would be done too.
Oh yeah.
Like,
So fucking rude what he
I
says
mean,
to her.
first I would have sleep with him.
I know.
Out of revenge, of
Then I'd be
course.
done.
I wanted them to hook up before that moment, like
Yeah.
so bad. Like
I thought they were
was
so
like,
close.
I know they were
When
so
she
close.
sees him in the shower, I was like, just go in there. Like just get in the
know.
shower with him.
But then he says to her, "What is it again?"
That he was like, we could just have fun. Like I like you too, but like we don't want the same things. Yeah. But we could just have fun if you want.
See, what I thought was almost more offensive was when she says, "Oh, let's play a game. Let's tell each other a secret." And her secret is, "Oh, I used to have a crush on you or whatever." And he's like, "Oh, I know.
I know.
That's
Yeah.
not a secret."
I mean,
and I
that
was
was
like,
a little
that was kind of
harsh.
shitty.
Yeah.
Like you didn't have to do that.
But I thought like the real dagger was him being like, you know, I liked you too.
Yeah.
And like, but you know, we
Yeah.
don't want the same thing.
That on top
And,
of it is
like, it
rude.
wasn't him saying that. It was him and then saying, but you know, we could still have fun if you want. Like basically being like, I'm going to throw you a bone.
Yeah.
And, like I'll have sex with you.
Yeah,
If you want.
yeah.
Like that was gross. So.
Yes, agreed.
when it's just like, you guys are so beyond that at this point. I
And, like,
mean,
that's not what
or
he
don't
wanted.
say it. Also, like I don't know, like, because then you're like shutting her down. I feel like from that too, a little
Yeah.
bit, where it's like maybe she would have just maybe like had a nice little like make out with you or something. Like
He made it like a power thing.
Yes, like he was-
exactly.
Yeah, he made
You
it
know.
so that he's the one lowering himself to her,
Mm-hmm.
like, and he's gonna again throw her a bone. But like, I think deep down he wanted it to happen.
Yeah.
and he was just trying to like make himself seem like he was still in a power position. So
Mm-hmm.
as men do.
I think that Dex is a tough character to play because he does have a lot of moments like that, like throughout the series, where it's like he is being a jerk, like to a lot of different people at a lot of different times. But I just think like Leah Woodall with those like puppy dog eyes, like makes you forgive him every time, and I think that that is really hard to do. Because like I forgave him.
You do. Well, and you see sort of what Emma sees, which, you know, there's a reason for the things that he does, and like there's pain underneath it, and she sees that in him because she knows him, and so she gives him the
Yeah.
benefit of the doubt, whereas we're like, we see it too, but also we're just like, but he's so wounded. Like it's ugh.
I feel like too though he has a lot of scenes where he is being like very sweet to her. Like in the episode before the Greece trip where they're laying in the park together and she's like laying on his shoulder and he says that line of like, everyone is always telling you like how smart you are, how great you are, how amazing you are, like especially me, I'm always saying that, like why don't you believe it? And I just think like, I mean, a guy saying that to you is just like one of like the best things.
I mean, she brushes him off too, like in a
Yeah.
lot of ways, which
Yeah.
like I think that they both are really frustrating. Like I love them both as characters, but there were so many times that I'm like, you're both just being stupid. Like, why are you doing this? Like, there are just a lot of times where she's pushing him away, and like that she doesn't really want to, and
Well, she ran away in that moment.
literally.
Like he was just like, "Oh, why don't you like stay over?" And she literally was like, "I gotta go." Like, to me, that was like the one moment where I was like, "Oh, come on!" Like it was there. Like, why'd you run away? Like,
but like they had to. I get why it never happened, because
totally.
it had to go on for so long, because like I think one of the things we wrote down that we wanted to talk about is that if they had hooked up earlier,
Yeah.
even on the first night or anytime earlier, honestly, would it have worked out? I don't think so.
I agree.
Like I think if they had hooked up at any time earlier, other than once they became like actual adults,
Right.
they would not have worked out.
I think if they would have just hooked up, it would have worked out, in the sense of like, because I personally feel like they were already so intimate with each other that I think that like if they had like hooked up, they still could have been together. I think if they would have gotten into a relationship,
Well, yeah, I guess
earlier
that's-
on,
yeah.
That's what you mean. Yeah.
then I think that like it wouldn't have worked out. I think if they would have like, had a night together, even if they were mad at each other about it, like even if she was mad at him about
Yeah.
it or something, like I still think later on they could have gotten together. But I think like if they actually like dated and really tried that, it never would have worked out,
Yeah.
because they were just like never on the same page. And I feel like timing has a lot to do with relationships.
Yeah,
And it
like, who
actually
you-
working out.
And we watched them grow up. Like they were both characters changed so much, like over
Yeah.
the course of the however many years, 14 years or whatever it was, or more.
I think it like by the end of it, technically it's like 19.
Yeah,
By the
so-
final
'cause
scene,
they
it's
skipped
19.
some years,
Yeah, they skipped
yeah.
some years at the end.
Again, I was trying to do the math and I couldn't keep up. But yeah, I just think that if I totally lost my train of thought.
No, I agree with you. If they had tried to be in a relationship in the early years, in their early 20s, I don't think it would have lasted.
Oh, what I was saying is that they were not fully like emotionally like
Right.
ready for it as people, because they were just both being immature like all
Yeah.
the way up until adulthood. So
And I do feel like too, if you're like getting into something like with a friend, speaking from experience, like I do think that it's like a lot more complicated than just like,
yeah.
starting to date somebody that like doesn't know that much about you really at the end of the day. Like it's a lot scarier. There's a lot more at stake. And it's just like so scary to actually like take that leap forward, because you're like, unless you're like fully committed, like
There's no
it
going
can blow
back.
up.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like so scary. It's like why a lot of people I feel like don't do it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I do feel like it's like more of a like decision you have to make, like
Yeah.
too. Like it's like I think you think like maybe one moment will like lead you there of like this is a moment where like we'll be together. And I think that that's kind of like what we're seeing a little bit in this too, where it's like maybe each of them is kind of thinking like this moment it will happen. But like at the end of the day, it's not really like one moment that's going to take you there. Like
Right.
you both have to like decide.
Yeah, you have to both be in the same place at the same
Yes.
time to want the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't get there until they're in their 30s,
A tragedy.
travesty?
Yeah, a
Tragedy.
travesty.
And a tragedy.
Slash tragedy.
Yes, I knew where you were going with that.
I mean, but when they do get together, it's so good.
Oh, it's great.
Like,
Oh.
it is so worth the wait. Like, I could not stop watching it until I saw them get together.
Yeah.
And I got very nervous. It was not going to be until, like, the
same.
last episode or something.
Yeah.
It was close to that.
It was this third.
Second to last, right?
The second to last is like they're together,
Oh,
but
yeah,
they
yeah,
actually
right.
you see them hook up for the first time at the
Right.
end of the episode 12 of 14.
Yeah.
This is fresh in my brain. That's why I've
and
got
it's
it.
it's a
good.
good moment.
It's
It's
fun.
worth the wait. Like, I mean, him in that shower.
The hands on the.
Do you see penis in this show?
No, it's not
sadly.
that kind of show.
But no, they're great together. The episodes, the scenes where they're in the apartment together, like
Oh, God.
just going through the day, is just like, I think it's the most heartbreaking because you're like, oh, like, I know we just said that if they had gotten together earlier, it wouldn't have worked, but like, you are kind of like, why were you guys wasting all this time when you
Yeah,
could have just been happy together? Like, you're so perfect for each other. And like,
And that's like the catch-22 of it all, is that like they weren't ready for it until that, till they were early 30s, and then you never know. So, it's hard. It's
That's why
heartbreaking.
it's so like devastating.
Well, should we say-
it really is like of just like
Should we say what is so devastating? Because we haven't actually mentioned it.
Yeah, I don't know what you were talking about. Are y'all spoiling the show? Or?
I
so
mean,
yeah,
we
we
are.
should have a spoiler alert.
At this
so-
point, we're spoiling the ending of One Day, which is
Emma dies. She gets hit by a car when she's riding her bike in the rain.
on her way to meet him.
It's tragic.
Awful. And this point, they've been together for like 3 years, I think. Like there's like
Something like that.
there's like a year where they get together in Paris. They're together for a year, and then you see, oh, let's move in together. And then a year later, they're engaged. And then a year later, they're married and trying to have a baby. And that is the point at which she dies. So they're only fully together for 3 years.
Yep.
Tragic. So while I was watching this, I did think the whole time, I thought one of them is going to die. And I figured it's
Why
gotta
did you
be the
think
female.
that?
I just thought that this was like that kind of show. The
vibe of it does
I
kinda-
also
yeah.
knew it was based on a book, and books love to do this, where they
Books love to
kill
kill
off
you.
a character like towards the very end.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like this happens in like a lot of romance books I've read or something, and it's like somebody tragically dies like shortly after happiness happens.
It's a particular type of novel too, because there's like the romantic like comedy book, right? I feel like, and then you have like the romance, like the proper like steamy romance, and then there's this kind of book, which is like a romantic novel, which I feel like always ends in tragedy, as you said.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
But so I thought though that it was going to be a different death. I thought it was going to be like a slow death,
Like a cancer death,
Yeah,
like the mom.
I thought she was going to die from cancer, like the mom had.
Yeah.
But he was
They love
actually
to give
going to
women
be
cancer
there
in these
for
books,
her.
man.
Like he was actually going to be there for her,
Right.
and like how he was with his mom.
That would have been. I can't decide if that would have been worse or better.
Better.
Yeah, I just don't love a car accident death like
Yeah.
that. She was wearing a helmet.
It wasn't believable.
How, that car wasn't going that fast.
I don't know. Yeah.
Like, at least have her maybe in the hospital for a while, which I guess she could have been, because like we're jumping
No,
ahead.
she clearly died on impact. They show that shot of her
Which
like
is
at the
like,
front of the
oh,
car,
that's
like
tough. And she-
eyes
her-
open. Like I was like, damn.
But like,
Yeah,
would
because
that
at first I
really
was
kill
like,
you? Like,
this is what
It
I was.
could.
The whole time I was like, she's not really dead. She's not really dead. And then that shot, I was like, oh, she's definitely dead. Like,
I mean, when they cut to him like smiling, listening to her voicemail, you're like, oh fuck, she's dead.
yeah. I mean, I saw it coming when she got on the bike and it
Yeah.
was raining, and I was like, because I was kind of, I didn't expect someone to die the whole series.
Yeah.
But I did expect once they got together, everything was just too perfect, and so I was like, there's still 2 episodes left.
Yeah, you're like,
I
something's
was like,
gotta
what
happen.
is gonna happen? Like, so I was just kind of waiting for the hammer to drop or whatever. But like, I didn't expect it to be a death. I just thought like he would cheat on her, or like she would lose the baby, or I don't know, something to cause more conflict to like keep it going. But then when she like got on the bike and I was like, I saw it coming, like I respond very differently in these shows, where once I realized what was happening, I just got annoyed. And I was like,
Sure.
I literally was like, are you kidding me? Like, after all this, like, I do not like to invest.
You don't
And
like
then,
a twist ending.
You don't like the
You do
rug
not
being
like-
pulled
I
out
just
from under you.
want it
You
to
get
be
pissed.
happy. Can we just have a nice, happy, expected ending? Like, just let them be together.
I know. There are other series for that. I know, but
I think
it is
I like
frustrating
paused it and went and made dinner like while she was on the bike.
because you're just like, I can't.
You're like, here it comes.
You're very
Better
Dawson
have
of
some
you.
pasta. I'm gonna watch this.
I like that move. That's smart.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that next time.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that it's just like you wish then that you just saw them like a little bit more. I could have watched 2 more episodes with them fully together before that happened. Like
don't
I
need
just
conflict.
wanted more.
I just can watch them do their
Yeah.
everyday life and be happy. And
I
watch
think
that.
I was loving that.
That's the tough part, is that like you get episodes where they're together but they're friends, and then you get episodes where like they're not together at all. Like the second episode, they're not in the same space. They're just like writing letters or whatever.
I didn't love those
There's
episodes.
episodes where
This
it's
is
just
why-
him, episodes where it's just her.
I think this is why some people struggle to like get through the
I
first
think so, too.
several is like it is a little slow when they're not together. Like, I mean, I was just continuing to watch,
Yeah, I
but
think that
like I
helps.
did feel like the first episode was great, and then it kind of like got a little slow,
Right,
and
'cause
like
they're not together.
and they're not together, and also like you're seeing them repeat the same pattern over and over again of like, oh, then they meet and then they have a good time and then they get mad at each other and then they don't talk and
then Dex
I
is
was
drinking
like,
too
yeah,
much.
and I'm
Dex
like,
is-
what are we doing again and again and again?
12-step program.
Yeah, literally.
I'm like, I feel like he could have a glass of wine.
You're like, he's fine.
I'm like, only when he's, not, when he's going through tragedy.
And yeah, I get it though. Like it is, I think if you're not binging it and you're not like anticipating the ending, like those episodes where they're not together, or like some of them where it's just Emma and there's no Dex at all, or vice versa, like it's hard to get through because you're just like, I just want to see their chemistry.
Yeah.
The one episode that I did like where they're not together and it's more Emma focused is the episode where her and Ian are having like the big fight, like breakup scene.
Oh, that is a good one.
I thought that was just a really like good episode, and I was like, I literally feel like I'm watching a full breakup right now. And Dex came up quite a bit, which I thought was interesting too, because I was like, oh, so she does talk about him a lot. Like this is like she's still kind of like
were you
obsessed with him and
questioning
holding
if
on
she
to
still
it.
liked him? At
Yeah,
this
like we
point?
just
Yeah.
like didn't really know like what was going on,
Yeah.
and like we had last seen like her and Dex fight and end their friendship, and you're just like curious, does she hate him? Is there still love there? Like what's going on? And then like Ian brings up this box of like photos that she has of her and Dex, and I'm like, I love this. Like
He's like, you've been writing poems about him.
yeah. I want to know the poems.
There's no getting out of this one, girlie.
Yeah.
This is worse than finding the texts.
I know. That's like
Bad poetry in a shoebox under the
yeah,
bed.
this is like the early 2000s version of finding the text.
Yeah.
You find the box of poetry and photos.
Oh my God.
I would have really thrived in that era.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I mean, I kept all my like school notes. I found them like recently
Oh
under
my
my
God.
bed. Yeah.
Oh, like the folded ones.
Yeah, that you like pass in class.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, that's cute.
they're so dumb. There was nothing good, but like I just could
Yeah.
not believe that I found them, and I was like, what an era. And then I was like, good thing I didn't have too many boyfriends back then. I would have had a lot of boxes. Anyways, but yeah, that was like a standout episode for me when it was like individual apps.
Yeah.
I just thought that that was interesting. And I like that, like, her and Ian, too, like, towards the end, like, he kind of more accepted it, and they seemed to, like, get to, like, a good place. I
The
feel
end
like
of
you
the
saw a
conversation.
lot in the individual episodes.
Yeah.
Like, you saw growth typically happen or them fall apart, like, one or the other. So I feel like that was something that was interesting in those apps, but I thought like the later ones of them individual were better than the earlier ones.
I didn't really believe the Ian relationship.
I did
not
I was
either.
Like, I'm not sold. Like, why is she suddenly interested in him? Like,
Right.
And he's really blowing it on their first date, and she's still like into it. And I'm like, I do not understand.
Yeah, that was my biggest complaint, I think, with the series, is that I just don't buy that she would ever be in a
Right.
relationship with him for years, for many years, to the point where they buy a flat together.
I mean, yeah,
I
it's
cannot-
serious,
Right. Like,
and he's so.
he's just like, ugh.
It
Like,
was
he's just
rough.
kind of not grimy, but he's just so like,
Can we see how tall he is?
Well,
oh my God.
well, this
She's
is
definitely taller than
this
him.
is why I like their breakup. I was like, thank God these two
know.
are breaking up.
Right.
Tyler refuses
But
to
I
look it
feel
up.
like
I'm not indulging you.
Justice
again.
for the short
He's
kings.
got to be
That took
5'6".
things off the rails
he
last
seemed
time.
quite short.
He was shorter than her in most episodes, in most scenes.
Well,
Like,
I was not looking at
I'm
that.
telling you, I noticed.
Listen,
I feel like they were really trying to show like the nice guy, and I'm like,
Yeah.
we could have had maybe a quieter guy that's not trying to
He
do
was
stand-up comedy.
Yeah, so
Like-
cringy.
he had one moment when I genuinely liked him, and that was when at the end of the date, when they're talking about Dex, and he's like, I just feel like he always takes you for granted.
That is
Yeah.
nice.
And I was like, that's nice. And you can see like she sees that, and I think it's like, oh, I feel this way 22 and someone else recognizes it. And I think maybe
So
that
now let's date for years.
right. But like, that doesn't mean you date this man for years, that you're like, oh, thank you for seeing that. And then let's be friends. But
I just don't even get why they went on a date like when he asked her out when they worked in the restaurant together, like she was kind of like
she was
not
like,
into it.
exactly.
So I'm like, it didn't make sense.
No, it
Also, are
doesn't.
you really bringing in that many people like from your past that you worked at a restaurant with, like in your early 20s? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right?
it's like bring in like a teacher.
Yeah,
like,
there could be some. Well, she
Well,
does.
I know, but
She does bring in
she
the
has had an
teacher.
affair with the principal.
Yeah.
Hot sex is at school.
Yeah. I loved when they open the closet. They're like, oh, let's get the stuff. And it's like the mat that they have stored in the closet specifically to have sex
it's
on.
so gross. Like it's not sexy at all. Like that whole relationship is just.
I know. I'm glad we didn't like see too much of that. I was
I
worried.
didn't want to see it.
I know.
I'm like, I'd rather have this fight with Ian than see more of
I mean,
that.
she's really raw. We get the real her.
Raw. Don't use that word.
I was like, don't say that.
You're gonna be back behind that desk if you keep saying raw.
Grow up. I could say worse things.
Oh God. Well, okay. Let's talk about something
along.
else. Was there a moment that like they talk, since we only see one day a year, was there a moment that like they talk about in an episode that we didn't get to see that you're like, oh, I wish I could have seen that?
Oh, it's when they or
I mean, the obvious answer
yeah,
is
well when they hooked up after the wedding.
Yeah.
Right? Like, do we never get to see that, correct?
no, we don't see.
Okay. I was like, did I miss it? Because they keep talking about it and I'm like, I must have missed that scene.
You're talking about when they're in Paris and Dex is like, we got to talk about
Yes,
it. And
yes.
and she's like, what's to talk about? We had sex.
Right.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, I missed that.
But it's after he gets
It's
divorced.
after he's divorced.
Right.
Yeah. But they did not
But
show
before
it.
she goes to
Okay.
Paris.
I was
Yeah,
like,
they
thank
don't show it.
God. I was literally, as I was saying it, I was like, am I going to sound real dumb?
I know.
No, they didn't show that.
No, that was
Because-
my main
Yeah,
one too.
But like the whole series, I was like, oh, I want to see when she went to his family's house early on in their friendship. But then they do end up showing that in the last episode.
Yes.
So, I mean, I wanted to see more of it, but I am dying to see when they had sex after he was divorced.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it maybe was a little awkward or something, so at least we got to bypass that.
But-
I don't know, but I was bummed.
He says, oh, we did it 3 times. So
I
it
know.
can't be too
I'm
bad
like,
if
I
they did it
need
3
more
times.
information.
I guess they were just like drunk and sad. And so it wasn't like a happy memory. So then they give us this like beautiful, like slow.
You can be drunk and sad and have
he
good
still
sex.
seems sad.
Well, he's less sad now that she agrees to be with him, I guess.
know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my main one because I'm like, are you kidding me? Like we've been waiting so long
I know,
for them
I'm
to
like,
get together and they
their
did and you
first-
didn't show it.
First
Yeah, we
time
don't-
they had sex, we don't see it.
No, we have to
Like,
wait till the second time.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I like that you thought you were in the kitchen making dinner and they had sex.
You're like, I missed the sex scene.
You're like, I gotta stop doing this.
Yeah.
She
I would
dies.
have been
They have
so
sex.
upset. I mean, I
In
was,
that order, right?
I was pretty sure I didn't miss it, but
No.
I was like, I'm not sure.
No, you
I,
didn't
know,
miss it.
sometimes I get distracted.
I mean, my jaw was like on the floor when he was like brought up the sex. I was like, sorry,
I was like,
what?
why didn't we see
so
that?
did nobody, neither of you were like, oh, I must have missed that.
No, because
I-
I was eyes glued that entire time.
Same. I was like,
so
oh, I know what. Yeah.
I knew I didn't miss it, but I was like, damn this show being only one day.
I need more days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there one for you, Claire? Was there a different one you were thinking of?
I mean, it was the first time they had sex was the obvious one, and I was happy to see when she visits him at Christmas time at the final episode. That was very sweet.
I was waiting for that the whole season.
Yeah.
I love that they tied it back to that because that was clearly like a big moment, like in their friendship. Like I feel like that weekend that they had together is like why they stayed in touch,
Right.
and like why they formed this bond together. And a big reason of all this too is like his mom really loved her
Yeah.
and loved her from that weekend.
Right.
So I feel like that was like such a big moment in the relationship. So I was so happy we saw part
Yeah.
of that because I was about to be pissed.
I know.
It's kind of morbid, but I did have a thought of like, oh, I kind of wouldn't have hated to see them at his mom's funeral. If like, I just would like to see her supporting him through that, because like obviously like we see like the progression of the mom's illness and then she's gone, and I would have liked to see a scene where like he's going through this heavy thing and she's like by his side as his friend supporting
Right.
him. And then we get when he's on the phone, I guess it would have been after that when he has that like breakdown at the train station and she's
Leaving her a message.
He's leaving her a
Yeah.
message and she's on
That
the date
was
with Ian.
Tough. To
That
watch.
was
Yeah.
heartbreaking.
Yeah, I would have loved to see her listen to that message.
Right. And be like, oh, fuck, I was out on this bad date with this idiot.
And what did she do afterwards? Like,
Right?
did she go to him? Like, because I thought we were going to see the aftermath of that
Same.
message. I thought maybe she was going to be like, she can't keep doing this to me, or like something like that. It was such a heartbreaking moment. When
I think that's one of the things that's kind of like, it's frustrating, but really smart about this show is that there's so much you have to fill in the gaps, like in between the episodes, and you can kind of imagine it, like, and you have to go off of context clues and everything like that. But like, to do it this way where they can go a full year in advance every episode, you can just see so much more progress, like in their relationship and their character development. Whereas like, if it had all happened in like the span of 1 year, we would have been bored. Honestly.
Yeah.
And it leaves you with more questions of like, where is this going? You know, like, I think we have more answers because we see little glimpses over the course of however many years.
Well, I like that it leads just like more up to interpretation too. Like, they're not like over explaining things to us and like telling things. It's like, we see Dax. we see Dax Shepard.
Very different show with that man in the role.
We see Dex like leave this heartbreaking message on her machine at the same time that Ian is telling her that Dex takes advantage of her. Like, we can put the clues together.
Yeah.
She continues to date Ian. Like, it's like, so it's like, we don't necessarily need that all like interpreted, which is like kind of nice, because I think sometimes shows like go a little overboard with it, and sometimes it's just nice, like, we all don't need to agree maybe on what happened in between something. Like, we could, you know, decipher it in like different ways, which is always kind of fun.
Yeah.
But I would have loved to have seen the funeral too, going back to that, because I feel like we heard a lot about Emma supporting Dex like during that time and with his mom, but we didn't really see it. And I just think that was maybe like a little bit of a missing piece. I mean, we heard that her like talk to him about it a lot and clearly like worry about him. But I think that would have been like very sad, but good to see.
Yeah.
I feel like because she died in the end, like Emma, that's why they didn't show it, because it just would have been too sad.
Too much sad death.
We can't have that much death and sadness.
I mean,
Dex lived it. Dex lived it.
Am I the only one that's like, maybe he should have died instead of Emma?
Okay, so I didn't.
I know.
that
He
bad?
should've. I thought he was going to.
And I couldn't decide though if that would have been like more tragic, that like he's had such a terrible, like, it's in a weird way it's too neat that like he's being punished for his mistakes.
Sense. Yeah.
And it's more tragic if he finally gets his life together. He's finally on the right path, finally happy, and loses it, and then has to continue on without her. And that, I guess, I think this story is clearly written by a man, because it's Dex's story, and Emma's there, but it's about him.
Yeah, definitely. You can tell that like throughout.
Yeah.
You see like a lot more.
You don't
of
even
him and his story.
Yeah, you don't meet her family ever.
That's true. Why do we not meet her family?
Her story just is not as like developed as his is, honestly.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see though, because it is so much about like Dex's story, and like he has all this like ups and downs and growth. Like, I would have loved to have seen too, just like, you know, we see him like open up this coffee shop, which by the way looks so chic.
I know. I want to go
like,
there.
So cute. I would have loved to have seen though, like maybe a little bit more of a moment of like Emma being like really proud of him, of like what he accomplished with that, or like the dad, like just him having like a moment of like where we can breathe easy for him. Like, he's doing great. And I know we like saw kind of like him doing well, but like I just maybe wanted like a little bit more of a moment where it's like, this guy can like breathe easy for once.
Yeah.
Like, he's doing well. The people in his life, his family, Emma, are all proud of him.
I mean, I think that's kind of where he's at when we get to her death. Like,
I just wanted
everything
to see
is
it.
going well.
Right.
Like, everything's all working out. The shop is getting more busy.
Yeah.
Like, everything's all coming together. And like, yes, they're still trying to have a baby.
But like, they've got
like,
this house with a breakfast bar.
Yeah, the
and
breakfast bar. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I needed to see that breakfast bar.
I know. Well,
But I don't know. It was just too good to be true.
I think I just wanted him to be happy more, because then it's like we get like not even really a moment
Yeah.
that much, like, of just like the individual like happiness, like not
Yeah.
just about being with Emma, but like
he's proud of himself.
yes,
Yeah.
because I do feel like his individual story is like a big part of this too.
Yeah.
And then it's like she dies, and then it's like he's obviously falling apart again, and it's like, could we just have this man have a moment?
What did you think of the like final episode where it's him just going through it all alone, kind of? Like, I feel like it was just really a struggle to get through that.
I know.
Like, it was just so sad, and like there really wasn't a lot of resolution, in my opinion. Like, they tried to make it kind of like a little bit of a resolution with him talking to her, like kind of in the room, but I thought it was just too dark.
Yeah, it's weird because it's so different from the rest of the show. Because like
Yeah.
obviously like it's just him. He's dealing with the fallout, and you see him regress, which is heartbreaking. You see him dealing with this, but it does feel like it's like they're building and building to this moment, and then we don't really spend time with him mourning. I guess we see that he's mourning for years, and that it's a process and it takes a long time. But yeah, it is really just like heavy, heavy, heavy through that final episode until the last like few minutes when they're in Edinburgh with the daughter and his dad. And finally, you're like, oh, he's finally turned the corner in the last 5 minutes of the show.
I mean, it still doesn't totally feel like 100%.
No, he's still
over it.
sad.
Yeah.
He's never gonna be
Obviously,
okay.
He's still seeing her, and every time
Yeah.
he's like going
I
anywhere,
know.
which is, ugh.
I was happy that we at least saw him and the dad seem to
Yeah,
like
that
be
was
okay
nice.
because
Yeah.
like we saw a lot of downs with that relationship. So I was like, oh, at least like he has his dad and they have gone through like similar experiences.
Right.
But
yeah.
I know it was just like I am happy he has a daughter. Like I feel like at
Yeah.
least like that's something to like get him up and moving.
I think she kept him going.
Yeah,
like without her,
exactly.
he would have
I
been
mean,
like,
Yeah.
yeah, not long.
I was so pissed when I heard he was having a baby, and now I'm like, well,
Thank God.
Thank God for
saved
that
him.
baby.
Yeah.
Thank God for Jazz.
I mean, were you guys shocked in the maze scene when he says that he's engaged?
Yes.
That
We got to talk about that.
Okay, so that was the first time I started crying.
Yeah.
Was when he, not the engagement, like that was like, oh, that sucked. But when he shows her the sonogram,
Yeah.
for some reason, I started tearing up because I was like thinking about what she must be feeling, like what Emma's feeling in that moment. And I was like, oh, this is so devastating. And then I
Well-
just cried through the end of that episode.
Because it's like you see the emotions on her face,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like first he says engage, and she's like, oh, okay. But like you
Yeah.
can see her kind of think an engagement could end.
I mean,
like you never
it's
know.
Another one of those times where she's saying one thing and you're like, oh, she's like
Yeah.
feeling
Yeah,
something
and you
different.
can tell.
I mean, she says, but like in a joking way of like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm devastated.
No.
Like, but like,
But I think like right before when they're in the maze, right? Like she says like, I feel like I lost you all over again.
Yeah.
And so I think in that moment, she's finally like honest, like fully honest with him, because she's like, I was like acknowledging that like they lost this friendship for years, and she like feels like she lost him again because now there's no possibility of them getting together. And then they like kiss briefly, and that's it. And that was like,
yeah.
that was a tough moment for me.
I thought she was more talking about like friendship when
Yeah.
she said that a little bit. I mean, I
See,
think
I read
it's
it as like romance.
yeah, I think I was more like, oh, she means just like that they weren't speaking for so long.
Well, they do
and, like,
keep going through these periods where they're not like really talking, and like I feel like they had kind of just come out of one of those where they hadn't seen each other in a long time.
So then I thought that then she was like, oh, and I was hoping maybe we could build up a friendship again, and now it's like definitely not going to happen. But I mean, I like your interpretation. You're right. I mean, I think it's probably a mixture of both, because
Right.
friendship and romance with them kind of is like similar.
It's a blurry line.
Like,
Right.
It goes hand in hand.
And I think too, what like reinforced that for me was like the next episode, like you do see them talking. Like she goes to the cafe, so like they've repaired or they've rekindled the friendship, I guess, but clearly that romantic part is not there anymore.
Yeah.
So in my brain, it was like, oh, she was talking about losing him, like the possibility of him more so than yes, the first time we lost the friendship, but now I've lost the possibility of it being more.
Right.
But I don't know.
Which is just devastating.
Yeah.
It
But anyway,
is.
that that episode was, whew.
The maze was really some great scenes.
Oh, so good.
Oh my God. I just did not see the baby twist
Well,
coming.
it's not what I thought was happening because he was clearly like very drawn to her the whole night. And like,
yeah.
you could tell he kept like looking for her everywhere. And I was like, oh, he's going to make a move.
I
like,
thought that too.
And so when he took her to the maze, I thought that's what was happening. So they really built us up and then they were like, nope. Fuck you.
They really played with our emotions. I was like, no. I feel like I like screamed into a pillow. Like I was so pissed in the maze.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, we're all stuck in this freaking maze. Like we can't get out of this maze.
This is when you have to pause and go make pasta.
Yeah, exactly.
So when I was watching this, I was thinking about this quote from Dawson's Creek, of all things.
Love it. Love it already. Love where this is headed.
And it's something that like I watched it, you know, however many years ago when I was like 12 or 13, and it's stuck in my brain. And it's the finale of season 2, the very top of the episode. Joey and Dawson are together at the moment. They're in his room watching Dr. Zhivago, which is a love story that ends in tragedy. The two main characters love each other, but they can't be together. And she says like to him, you know, I wonder what sick part of me like loves these kind of love stories. And he's like, the kind that end unhappily. And she says, no, the kinds that never really end. I mean, think about it. To continue loving somebody when there's no promise of that love ever thriving, that is romance. And then he responds, no, that is tragedy. And she says, not all love stories have a built-in happy ending. Sad stories are just more powerful. And that's the part that stuck with me. Sad stories are just more powerful. And then like he's like, but they don't end happily. And she says, it's not their fault. It's the circumstances. But what good is their love if it's not strong enough to overcome their circumstances? Because in spite of their circumstances, they never stop loving.
Ugh, I love that.
Sad.
Yeah.
I love that so much. Like, one, that's why I love Dawson's Creek. Like,
Yeah.
so philosophical.
Right? Joey
for a teen
Potter.
show. Like, I love that. But I do think that's true. Like, I personally, like, I do love sad romances. Like, I just... And I think that's why a lot of people have like connected with this though too.
Yeah.
It's like it is like there was something very like powerful about this story and like what happens to the characters. And I think it just like draws people in more.
Yeah.
And Dawson, shut the fuck up. Like just stop.
Well, you know what's interesting is that I like watched that clip earlier, and they're watching the end of Dr. Zhivago, and it's like the breakup scene, and he turns it off before they get to the breakup scene. He got up and he made pasta. You know, like he was like,
Oh my God, you're a Dawson, Jesse.
because he was like, I don't want.
Yeah.
He's like, he knows they're gonna break up. He's like, I don't want to watch this, and he turns it off. And she's like, what are
Wow.
you doing?
I think I am because I'm like the whole thing. I'm like, I mean, I agree. Like a tragic love story is like very powerful, but like maybe it's more like when I'm watching TV, I just want to like
You wanna-
escape.
I get
like,
that. Sure.
That's fair.
So
Yeah.
I think though the point though too of like that's in there that's like the love story that like never ends.
Yeah.
Like I think that is why too like this is powerful. It's like he's never gonna stop loving her like even though she's gone.
yeah.
And I do think like those stories are just like so gut-wrenching. Like even when people can't be together and you know like they still love each other, like oh my God, that just like kills me.
I know. It's so
It really
sad.
does. Like
And I think those are the ones that stick with me. Like, I don't know that I
Yeah.
love them more, but I do think they are more powerful because, like, you can't stop thinking about, like, what could have been. Like, you're like, oh, like, if just this one thing had been different, or you're, like, playing out scenarios about, like, if they were together, if it did end happily. And when you get a happily ever after, like, you know that that's it. They lived happily ever after. And you don't have to think about it. And this, it's like, but what if? Like, what if, you know, it turned out differently? And so I think these are the ones that haunt me.
I mean, I think that's what's really dark about this show is it makes you think back on your own life, and you're like,
yeah.
she's
had some wine.
We're going inward.
She's had
Okay.
some
Like,
wine.
they go so many years without getting together, and then they finally end up together, and it's like, I don't know, just how many people in your life are you like pushing to the side that like it's your real like destiny? I don't know.
I have thought about that a lot. Like honestly, I know. Like
It's like-
because
you're
I
like-
always thought there was like a version of like me and Tyler that could have happened. With,
Right,
honestly. where it was like that is like another timeline or something.
Where you don't make the
Yeah.
choice and then you end up yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Where it takes like years for us to get together. Like maybe we date other people at one point or something like that happens and it's like and it just takes years. Like I really did think like I thought that could have been our ending at one point. I thought that was the only way that our story ended until we got together. Yeah.
Wow.
I have a
Real
lot of
life.
thoughts on
A
this.
real life.
Like,
Well, I'm glad that wasn't the case for you guys.
I think the moral of the story is don't live a day without regrets.
yeah.
Live every day as if it's the one day that you have.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's what they're trying to say.
I think so too.
Right.
I think too it's like they obviously loved each other and there were points where they like couldn't be together. And we even admitted that. We were like,
Yeah.
no, they shouldn't have been
Yeah.
together. But it's like that's what's so sad about it too. When it's like
Is that
two people who love each other but just can't be together for like circumstances or they're at different timelines in their lives or something like that is just so upsetting
Right, like that-
to watch and to live like
Because like I
but
think
it's so real.
yeah. Because it could only have happened this way.
Yeah.
Like if they had tried to like make it work earlier, it wouldn't have worked anyway. So like it could only have worked
it's just
out
for
in
them
this-
to have been friends for 15, 16 years
Yeah.
and then to only have gotten 3 years together.
Oh, it's
Like-
devastating.
You keep bringing up the 3 years, and every
I'm
time you know, I'm
sorry.
like, stop! I need to
Don't
sip on
cry.
my wine.
I mean,
Like,
that's
3
just
years
what
is not
hurts.
long
it's
enough.
not long at all.
We needed 2 more years. They could have given us a solid 5. You know. Yeah. Maybe she could have had a baby or something. Like,
would that have been even more tragic?
I know.
To leave the
I
kid?
know. I know.
We're going down a rabbit
but
hole
like,
here.
I'm just.
But this is why these stories are more powerful because you're playing this game of like, what if, you know, you're playing out these alternate scenarios in your head.
Yeah.
Well, now it's time for our As If rants. This is the part of the show where we rant about anything in the show for 15 seconds, and we have to use the quote, as if, at some point. So, Claire, are you ready to start us off?
I think so.
Let's do it.
All right, Claire, I'm going to time you. 15 seconds on the board, and go.
Emma dates Ian long enough to buy a flat with him as if. I mean, I get that he's supposed to be like the nice, nerdy alternative to Dex who takes her for granted, but he's cheesy, he's creepy, he's weird. And like, she would in no way put up with his absolutely psychotic, unhinged behavior of breaking into their apartment.
That's true. He does break into their apartment.
That was psychotic.
Yeah,
but
that was crazy.
I thought it was funny. I was
Like, at one point, she's like, "How many keys
it's-
have you made?" And he's like pulling out multiple
was
copies.
funny. I love
He's
that.
fully a clown.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
he is an actual clown.
Yeah,
Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, poor Ian.
he gets
Sorry.
married. He ends up fine.
To be fair, Ian might have deserved better than his living girlfriend having a box.
Of course, but yeah.
I know.
They shouldn't have never.
They should not have.
He
dated
should have
that
taken
long.
the
That's
hint
crazy.
early on when she was obsessed with Dex. You know, he should have had some self-respect and gotten out of that.
I would have liked to have seen her date like another guy or something too. Like, why
Like
did
an-
it have to be like this one guy? Then she like really settles down with. Like,
Yeah.
I just thought
I
that was
know.
kind of crazy
Like,
too.
it would have been better if she had a viable option.
Yeah. You know what I did think? I thought this never would have happened today. Them just buying this flat. Like,
Oh, with prices being what they are.
economy.
In this market?
yeah. I was like, I want all these shows to take place in the past because it was people were able to buy things.
Yeah.
We did not really talk about the fact that, and you and I talked about how much we like that it happened in this era.
Yeah.
Of like when there was no cell phones and you
Yes.
had to write each other a postcard and call each other on a landline and leave a voicemail. Like it added so much to the story
Yeah.
that was so necessary.
Yeah.
Well, at first I was like, why is this taking place like in the 80s?
Yeah,
like
same.
starting there. And then I was like, oh, they're writing letters and they're leaving voicemails. And I was like, this is so cute.
It's
I love
literally
this. Like,
about
it's-
the communication.
Yeah.
Like it forces all these like miscommunications and stuff
Yeah.
that like would never happen today.
Yeah.
And I just think it's a little more romantic than like
It
a text
is.
message, sadly. But
Yeah.
Me back to the 80s.
All right, Jesse, we have 15 seconds on the clock, and go.
Dexter Mayhew does not turn out to be an extremely successful actor, as if. I mean, look at that face, the charisma, the romance. I mean, I just do not believe that he did not succeed as an actor.
I agree with that. I was like, he would be great on MTV.
Yeah,
Like, it
they're
just
like,
made
oh,
sense.
everyone hates
Like,
him. They make fun of him. Like,
Have
I'm
you
like,
looked
how
at
are you
him?
making fun of him? Like, he's beautiful. He's like on the newsstands, like as like everyone's making fun of him, basically. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but like nobody would be making fun of him. Like,
Yeah.
So that's my spiel.
And go.
Dexter leaving the entertainment industry or being forced out and not becoming a realtor, as if. The pipeline is entertainment industry to realtor. There is no other option than that. And he would have been a good realtor.
He does buy property, so
He would have been good, right?
I love it. I'll sell him my house.
All right. Well, this ended on a silly note.
It started on a silly note, then it got real sad. And now it's back on a silly note.
We gotta end things positively.
We're
you know?
up and down just like Dexter.
I haven't had dinner.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. We hope that you all sobbed during one day like we did and enjoyed it as much as we did. Pour out the wine for Emma. Thank you gals for joining today. What a fun little girl group we had.
Yeah. Again, thanks for letting me out from behind the desk.
course.
we let Jessie out again.
Yeah. I
We'll
had some
have to
things
put her
to
back
say.
there maybe for another minute.
I need a breather.
We needed to talk it out for this one. This one was heavy.
I feel like we're all like seated in a semicircle too, like we're in a support group. Yeah.
I know.
It's cute.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it. Thank you all for listening. Claire, tell us where they can find us.
You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Please remember to rate and review us. Give us 5 stars. You can also find us on TikTok and Instagram at previously on _teen TV.
Thanks for listening.